Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Chivly webinar. Today is a little bit different than some of the other ones that we've done. Today, we're just going to do a simple Q&A where you guys are going to facilitate and ask us questions. The way that we kind of have it laid out is we're going to go over creating online stores, processing the stores, and then like any sort of other general questions. Obviously, some questions will probably bring us to other points that might bring up someone else's question. So pretty much don't feel shy. This is just a great way for you guys to ask questions in a group setting, and then we can answer them, and you guys can also learn from other people's questions too as well. So, Craig, do you have anything to add before we hop in?
No, no, just don't be afraid to ask a question. I know that someone mentioned that they were just excited to hear other people's questions. They felt confident in how they were using Chipley, but they were excited to hear other people's questions. So I just want you guys to be in the mindset that your question may not necessarily impact you directly, but your question may impact someone else unknowingly. So just keep that in mind.
Perfect.
Uh,
I think we already have a question, Craig. So, can you reopen a closed group store?
yeah, that's a good question, but also a loaded question. Um,
Yeah.
So, so here's what I'll say about that is if the store is in the closed ready to process folder, um, generally, everyone's business is slightly different, but generally what that means is that uh, nothing has been done to that store just yet. It's been closed, but it hasn't been moved through any system yet. Nothing's been purchased, nothing's been printed out. It's like in the queue of needs to be done. I would say if the store is in the closed, ready to process, and you have a family or someone reach out and say, "Hey, I forgot to place my order. I meant to place it before it closed and something came up, blah, blah, blah," something you guys hear all the time, I'm sure. Um, if it's in this closed ready to process, I would always double check with the salesperson to make sure that that is okay, that no one has started processing that store. And if no one's done anything, then I would say you have the green light to just reopen that store instead of copying it. I think because Chipley's really great at consol or consolidating all the orders and getting everything quantified. But I wouldn't say it's so great at separating old orders from new orders or original orders from new orders. There is a way, but it it gets a little bit messy. Um, so if the store is in closed ready to process, to sum that up, I would say, yeah, you could just reopen that store in theory and let them place their order and then process it as if you would any other store. However, if the store is in production, generally that means that someone printed something out, items might have been purchased, things like that. Work has already been started on that store. That's when I would suggest what you would probably want to do is go ahead and copy that store and then let the customer place that their late order on the copied version of the store. Um, a little added tip that I would suggest is on the settings page of the copied store. So let's just say copied, just so that we are all on the same page. Uh, for a handling fee, you might want to throw on a per order flat fee, and that could be like a late fee. And maybe you charge them like $20 because you know that you're going to have to pay the freight potentially just for their order. But now that you're covering your cost and just say, hey, unfortunately, like we already started processing that and there's things going on, we can fulfill your order because you don't necessarily want to say no, but you just want to make sure that you're covering yourself and your costs. So you might want to just go ahead and throw on a late order fee onto that copied version so that they kind of cover the cost that it takes to run that last minute. And then obviously, once they place that order, your goal is to try and catch that order up as quickly as possible to the other store so that you're not, re-burning screens and doing stuff like that. But you're trying to maximize your off your after store production. Now, if it's a catalog store, that kind of changes things. If it's a catalog store, you could just reopen it, and then you would batch that store. So the new order that comes in would be its own batch, and then you could just let them. So there's really no rules on a catalog store. So if it is a catalog store, go ahead and just reopen it. That wouldn't be a big deal.
Perfect. One of the things too, that also helps with if you do have to reopen that store and you haven't started to process it, one of our newest updates too is the relaunching of the open email and the store close. So that
Oh,
way
yeah.
you guys can stay on top of that too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so it used to not resend out that store closed, but now it does, as of like 2 weeks ago, I think.
Yes, it
So
is
that way it
newer.
helps, yeah, it helps you as the store salesperson stay on top of it, as well as your organization contact who might be in on those emails.
Perfect, perfect. Another one here. So why is there store uh a store close date on a catalog store? It'd be nice to have an option for it to not ever close. I worry that in a year or two, a store closes will close by m mistake because we didn't remember to extend the date further out.
Um, yeah, I think the best way to answer that is we just we have a close date on it to I like to describe it as like two things. One, it we have the limit, so you could have the store open for 15 months. So that's generally a pretty long time. Once that 15 months is hit, just as a heads up, you will be emailed when the store closes. So there will be an email that comes in that says like, "Hey, this store closed." So that's your reminder of like, "Oh, I need to copy that store and rerun it, and extend the dates out." The other thing that I've kind of been spinning that is when that happens, you know that 15 months has gone by. It's probably not a bad idea to go ahead and review that store and maybe update it with some newer products, um, review the products that are on there, things like that. It just gives you kind of a good reminder to go in and refresh it.
Perfect. All right, don't be guy shy. Don't be shy, guys. Answer keep on answering questions here or asking questions. Jeez, it's been a long day. Craig, now I know how you must have felt as a teacher when you're always asking for.
Oh, wait time is huge, man. You just wait. Look, there it goes.
Forget some more. All right. All right. There's no way to just keep extending the close date if we have kept with the store every couple of months and needs no update for those catalog stores, as you were saying.
Um, I think if that's a catalog store, I mean,
I think
it
they're talking
would
about
be
a catalog store.
yeah, it would be open for 15 months. So I mean, like that's generally fairly
Yeah.
long time. But if you're talking about a group store, um, like I said, if it's a group store, eventually it's just going to be hard to kind of keep track of what's a new order versus an original order because it's just going to keep adding to the work order, and then your work order isn't really going to be useful after a while. That's like where it becomes like a, kind of a big deal is the work order won't become useful.
Yeah. And for the catalog stores too. I think one of the main reasons why it's set to 15 months, you can't continue to keep that open is just for the reporting wise inside of Chipley too. So
That's yeah, that too. It's just to keep make sure that like it doesn't overload um I don't know, like the data within that store.
yeah. All right, now we're starting to get a lot of questions here. So um
Well, there's that question about copying a store. I kind of want to go over that actually. We did just have an update yesterday. Was it yesterday already?
yeah.
So when you copy a store now, when I copy this store, you're now going to get a prompt. So you still get the same. This none of this is necessarily anything different. It's still going to have the store name. It's going to have if you want to change that store into a different type. So let's say I built this out as a group store and I got halfway through and then I realized I meant to build it as a catalog store. Don't stop what you're doing. Keep building that store out because it won't be wasted effort. And then what you could do after you're done is you would just go ahead and copy it as a catalog store. Um, and then now you have a catalog store from what you started building as a group store. The big thing with the new update here, and I think this kind of goes along with your branding question, is you could not bring in so you could copy a store essentially for the branding and for the settings page and for the artwork and the processes. You could keep all of that stuff the same. But let's say you're using the templates heavily. You could not bring in any of the products when you copy the store over and then bring in your new template and assimilate that to the processes, the artwork, the branding, the settings page that you had with the old group. So that's the whole purpose of the new update is for you to be able to keep the branding, to keep the processes, to keep the artwork. But maybe you don't want the products. You want to dump the products so that you can get fresh new items in there with the new catalogs that come out. That was the whole like purpose of this. And then another big thing would be like if you had a massive store and you really didn't want everything to come across, you could unselect a lot of stuff, which would make the copying of the store a lot faster as well. Instead of having to copy everything over and then just delete it, you would just bring over what was necessary. So I think that that kind of answers um, the question about the branding,
Yeah.
I
One
hope.
thing one thing too, I'm seeing a couple of them in here. When you copy a store, you can keep the same URL as long as you don't have another store open with that URL. So you can reuse it over and over again. So when that catalog store, for example, shuts down in 15 months, all you have to do is copy that store and the URL won't change for the customer. So the customer won't even know that it's a new store. So
Yeah, it's true. And then there was a good question that they're not included on those emails when the store closes. So
yeah,
um, I just wanted to highlight that. So there's two places you could do that. So if the store is already open, those automated emails would be generated. But if you want it to happen for new stores going forward or go into the old ones, I should say, let's start there. So if there's a store in particular that you're like, oh, I want to make sure that I'm on that store close email, you could go into that store, go to the automated messages, and then it would be the where is it? Your right after open. Am I missing the store close one?
stores launch.
This accounts might be different. They may have adjusted it. Anyways, what you would do is you would go in here, and then what you could do is edit this, and then you would add yourself as a recipient, and then that way you would be included in that store close email. But if you wanted to change that for like all your stores going forward, you would want to go up to the My Account settings here and then go to the message templates. And then so here's the one that you would really want to pay attention to is the catalog parent store closed. You would edit this, and then you could add your personal email here, so that way you would be included on those emails as well. On all new stores going forward, or new, I should say, new live stores going forward. So all the stores that you have scheduled, it would change. You wouldn't have to go into those scheduled stores and change anything. It would apply to those scheduled stores when they go live.
Perfect.
Does that, you think that, did I answer that fully, you think, Chris?
I think so.
Okay.
Um, all right. Do we want to jump into another part? There is some more questions on like just some of this stuff, but I feel like we could spend a whole time just talking about copying a store and all of the information.
Yeah. Um,
There's that last one there that we can hop
Adding
into.
products.
Yeah. Can you explain when adding products to a store, there is a place, is there a place you can add product numbers and then My Products tab? How does My Products tab work?
Okay, so how does the My Products tab work?
That
Um,
and I think just adding products too.
okay, so let's go into a store. So that's on the products page, and then you would hit add products, and then you would switch over. So the big difference here is the Chipley products. These are products that are um, essentially untouched, right? Like they are, they've never, you're pulling them fresh from our database. And then you're applying artwork and new pricing and things like that. But if you go to My Products, now you can pull products from old stores that you've ran in the past. Um, that would then, like if I just do a PC55, this will be on a ton of stores. So if I need a specific PC55 or if there is a specific custom product from an old store, I could either search up that store, and it would just give me all the items that were offered on that store, and I could bring them into my new store, or I could search up the style number across all my stores, like in this case. And then what I could do is I could select which item specifically I want to bring in. So this one had this particular logo on it. I could select that item and just add that item to my store. And then when I get to the process page here, um, if I add it to an already existing process, it's going to take on that that process that I'm adding it to. However, if I wanted to also bring in the artwork that was originally used on the old store, I would create a new process, and then this just might be like full front. Let's just say, um, whatever, full front two, and then and then I want it to be on the full front. So now when I add this product to my store, because I created a new process right now, it's going to bring across the old artwork that I had assigned to that product.
Perfect. There's also um question here too, Craig.
Hmm.
That last one in there. Um, will there be an update in the future to allow us to change the imprint area and size for a specific item to avoid some of the manual adjustments that we have to do with positioning? I forget off the top of my head, but if you bring that in through My Products, it should keep exactly where that logo is,
Yeah, I'm pretty
correct?
sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it should. Yeah, as long as you add a new process. So if you create a new process when you bring it in, it's going to hold all the same attributes that it had on the old store.
Yeah. So if you wanted to, you could set up a template or a store where you've gone through and positioned it exactly where you wanted it to go,
Yeah,
and then just pull those in through My Products.
yeah. I'll just say clear. Um, is there any other?
Um,
Um,
there's currently that would be, I mean, that would be the only way to really keep the positioning of the artwork.
yeah.
Um,
Um,
should I'll just ask this newest one that I just came in here.
mhm.
Will you be able to add a phone number to request the store button? I know that's been asked about and it's been brought to the team. I feel like eventually I don't see why that couldn't be added. It's just not currently there right now. Oh,
So there was one that was a little bit ago, how to sort on the products page, how to quickly find an item. So while I'm in the products page, I figured I can answer that. So that's a good question. Some people, I mean, this has been on there for a while, but some people may have not found this. But if I hover over what we call the speed dial button, and then I click on the filter button in the middle here. This is a really easy way for me to find an item quickly. So if I just do PC55, it's going to show me all the PC55s in the store, and it has, because it has PC55 in LPC55, it brought those up as well. I could use this as a big search field. I can sort by a certain process. So I can see all my full fronts. And then this way I can select everything and I can make it changes to all of them. And then that way I'm not seeing other items as well. This is where I heavily use this to make bulk updates to a bunch of products at the same time. Um, and then to resort, I think there's two answers to that question. The first one being if you just want to reorganize this, like I could, if I wanted to see the last item on my store without having to scroll all the way down, I could just click on the sort button here, and now it's brought my last item to the top, just for me to work on. It hasn't changed anything, other than my view. So just as a heads up, like it doesn't change the order that these items show up on the store. It really has just changed how I'm looking at items. Same with like my sell price. I could update if I want to see my cheapest items to most expensive first. I could update or I could select this to put them into ascending order. Um, Same with the, I could combine all the process or sort by the processes. I could sort by the product name. So there's a couple ways that you can separate and restructure how you're viewing your product spreadsheet. And then I think the second way to answer that question, because I think there's two ways to interpret that. If you're asking on how to move items on your store, so like for example here we have the ladies PC55 first, then the adult, then the long sleeve, then the polo. If I wanted to move my polo items first, there's a couple ways I could do it. One, I could click and drag here and reorder them one by one, and then I would hit save, and then that will change the order that they show up on my store. The other way I could do it is I could select these three items. I could hit the bulk actions button, move the products, and I want them to go to the top. So I want them to show up after sort number zero, and then I can move all three of those at the same time. The other way to do this would be to, if you wanted to like kind of, um, I guess where this would most be beneficial is if you're like, if you have a bunch of, if you have like 50, 70, 100 items on your store and you're like, okay, I need to move this item in between product number 5 and 6. I want it to show up after number 5. You could do 5.1 because 5.1 is after 5 but before 6. And I could do this one to be like 5.2, let's say, for example, and I'm going to hit save, and then it's going to restructure. Or did it not? Oh, I think it's because I had that early. I hit this earlier, or I was sorting it by a different factor. But now it put it after number 5, but before number, and then after number, it put them one after another in the place exactly where I was wanting them to fall.
Perfect, perfect. I think this one was asked earlier, but I accidentally got skipped. But then I'm gonna go to another one here, Craig. But are you able to allow two different coupons to be used on one order? You can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure you can use two promo codes, but you can't use two e-certs.
It's the other way around, actually.
Is it?
Yeah, you can use two eSerts, but only one promo code.
Oh, that's what I meant, but I flipped it. But
No, you're
yes,
good. You're good.
yes, yes, yeah, yeah. Okay. There's a question here. Just curious, what is your favorite shortcut slash feature when setting up a store?
Oh man. Um, I guess it depends on the store. The one that I think is the most time saving is if you have a store that has multiple processes, but you want to offer them on multiple products. Um, I just think like the copying functions on everything is helpful. So like for the artwork, if I have a bunch of logos that I know are like if I have a football, baseball, softball, basketball logo, and it's just like an all black logo and an all white. But for all of them, but obviously it says like blank football, blank basketball, blank baseball, blank softball. Um, I would set up that artwork once, exactly how I want it to be. And then I would just copy it, change the name, swap out the artwork, copy it, change the name, swap out the artwork, go to the processes, kind of do the same thing, copy it, change the name, swap out the artwork, copy it, change the name, swap out the artwork. And then we go to the products page. And then I would filter by all the processes that are like everything would be assigned. I would have assigned to like one full front, let's say, if I was assigning a bunch of full fronts. So then I would look at all of these. So essentially, I get the shell of all my jobs set up first. And then what I would do is I would just select everything and then in bulk add all those processes all at one time. I would say that's the one that's like saved me the most time and helped me make the stores like as quickly as possible. Is there, Chris, is there one that you can think? I mean, you've built plenty of stores. Is there one that you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be before we started to teach everyone this was setting up the processes first, because we used to
Mm,
uh, bring in the processes when adding products. Um,
yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Creating the process and the artwork first is,
Yeah,
has been nice because it just lets everything kind of fall into place a lot easier.
I agree. Um, but yeah, I'd say that. Um, Getting a lot of questions here.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, like the purchasing is really cool if you're
Well,
not using. I mean, like not in
yeah,
that's not store building, I know, but like there's just a lot, I guess.
yeah, and it depends on every store. I feel like sometimes you can get away with doing a little more shortcuts with some stores than you can with other stores. So,
Hmm. Oh, there was a comment in here that talking about like when I was adjusting the order of the products.
Hmm.
And they're right. The best way if you have categories set up on the store, um, the best way to do that effectively would be to use the filtering function that we have here. Make sure you filter by oh, I don't have categories on the store, but filter by that one category at a time. Make your adjustments because what you're seeing here is how it's going to show on the store. So if I'm filtered by a certain category here and I move my long sleeve to go in between here on the storefront, my long sleeve will be in between my two short sleeves here. Um, if you're just trying to move items around without filtering out that category, it could get kind of confusing because it's going to show up in a potentially a different order than what you're anticipating. So I think that's a good point to make. Keep in mind if you do have categories on the store, filter by one category at a time, move your items around, then pick a different category, move them around to adjust it to show the way you want it to.
Exactly. Um, there's a good question here. Is it important to use the process price on every item?
I, I think that's a loaded question. I'm gonna say, I mean, I would say like eventually, yeah. Um, you would probably want to try and move towards that at some point because it will help you price out your items more consistently. Um, if you come up with like a matrix and you say like, okay, this is like a two color print, it has one variate or no, yeah, just one variation, um, or no variations, I should say. It's going to be $6 every time. Um, that way you know that you're covering your costs, you're hitting your margins eventually, and then let's say the customer makes a change and they're like, hey, actually we want another variation thrown in there. We don't really like the way we don't want like a black on black look on the garments. We would like that to become transparent or whatever. So you have to create a whole nother artwork. It's not inherently hard then to go in here and bump it up from let's say $4 to 6 in this case. So now I can just add that $2 and then for all my full front items, because that was the process I just adjusted, it went ahead and added the $2 on top of all those items. So that way it priced everything out for me and I didn't have to go through and readjust anything. Um, I would say if you're offering two different decorations, so like if I was doing a full front and a left chest embroidery, there's probably a different in price there. So here we have, yeah, so for the print, just because I just changed it, we have $6 here. But my embroidery, obviously, because it's, the stitching is going to cost a little bit more. I now have two different prices set up on the store. That's the best way to utilize the pricing structure. So this one says starting at $2, and that's just because of how we set up the pricing on this one. But if I switch it to the embroidered left chest, it goes up to the $3 instead of the two. So this is an easy way for you to make sure that you're covering your costs, offering the same garment on the store, but giving your customer the choice between the two decoration styles, but making sure that you are making your profit at the same time. So it, but if you factor that into your price, no, it's not necessary. I just think that it leads to potential more manual work in the future. If like someone does come back and says I need to change the pricing or whatever, then you would have to go through and manually do the math, change your product price instead of just doing it one time. I think there's benefits. But I think like if I was going to give an answer, I would say yes, long term, you should look into seeing how you can implement process price into your stores.
Perfect. Um,
Um, I have someone asking about hiding price option.
yeah, go for it.
There, I mean, so this store here, we're currently kind of high. I mean, I changed this one. Let me change it back. It's probably because I updated this. And I know we went over this with the packages webinar as well. So everything's at $0. We did negative 100% fundraising. Essentially, in this case, we're expecting the organization to pay for everything for the customer, and then you would invoice them later on. Um, so as of right now, all the pricing, I believe, is showing up at $0, um, which some people are okay with. Some people would prefer to clean that up. The way to do that is now that all my pricing on these products is at $0, what I can do is I can do store-wide actions if I want it to apply to every item in the store. That's at $0. I can set the $0 sell price display to either be do not display, or I could put a custom label in. So if I want do not display, I can just hit accept. And then now when I refresh this, all my pricing is hidden. Or like I said, we could do the custom display, the custom label, and you could say like order will be, I don't know, payroll deducted. And then now that shows up at the bottom of each of the products that were at $0. In this case, every item is at $0, so that's why it's showing up on all the items, which then shows up here as well. So I hope that answers that question.
Perfect.
Yeah. Um, Someone asked, how would they know how much was deducted? They wouldn't. This is probably a bad example. You wouldn't do that. I'm just saying there's ways for you to put in a custom label. Um,
Do we want to touch on that newest one? I mean,
um, yeah, I don't see why not.
I can.
You mean the um, auto pricing?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah,
I
let's do
think we
that
could do
one.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick to touch on that. So we have these auto pricing features set up. This kind of does go in tandem with the process price. So the auto pricing works best if you are utilizing the process price, I would say. So what's going to happen is if I choose an auto pricing, I have four different tiers that I can choose from. Um, Essentially, each of them are different percents off the MSRP. Uh, the goal is to get this percentage. So let's just switch it to tier two real quick. So my price went from six something to 575, and rounded up to the nearest quarter. So essentially what's happening here is I'm trying my best to get that percent off to be how I would want to price that item out if it was not decorated. That's like the goal. And then my process price would come in and make up the margin for the price of decoration and the processing. So then my final combined price should be what I would feel comfortable selling that item as decorated. Um, I'm not gonna lie, I think like the PC55s, like these milled items are a bad example of that, just because the MSRP is already so low to begin with that your margins are going to be way better. You could easily change this to say like $8, um, and make a much higher profit margin on it. Um, but like this cutter and buck, for example, the MSRP is $40. Um, Man, I don't know. I don't know what the auto pricing is set at in this account for cutter and buck, but it took a pretty big chunk off. Um, Here, let's put this back to tier one. So now we're back up to $30. This probably is a little bit more accurate. And then if I throw my $7 embroidery process price on it, I'm now up to $37, which is probably a lot more up to speed on where I would feel comfortable selling this item as decorated, which allowed me to then price this item out without having to um, look too far into it. What's also nice is if you have multiple salespeople on your team, and if they're following the structure and you have a sort of like matrix in place, if if a customer calls two separate times and they talk to two different people about pricing, they should be getting the same price. You shouldn't be getting one salesperson shouldn't be telling them one price and then another one a different one. Um, it's just never like an ideal situation that you want to be in. And then it's also just taking out a lot of human error of doing the math and factoring all the other margins and markups and everything that you do. If you did it one time and figured it out well, you just set that auto price and then set up your process price, and it should be accurate majority of the time. Again, these milled items, you're going to want to go through and reprice these out probably just because you know that you can make more money on it is really what it comes down to. And then last thing is the different tiers. Generally, what people do is like tier one would be your bread and butter pricing. This is like your go-to. Tier two might be like a more loyal account, a more competitive price. Tier three is an even more competitive price. And then tier four would be your most competitive pricing, is generally how people set it up. However, I have worked with some accounts that like tier one is their go-to. Tier four is their like their backup. Like they've just totally split it out so that tier four functions completely differently than tier one. It might be like 110% of the MSRP. So like some people would make tier one their um, the sport tech items, maybe their name branded apparel, and then tier four would be those milled items, so that they would just select these three items, set up the pricing here, and you could do set auto pricing, and then this would be tier four, which might be set at like 120% of the MSRP, which is actually adding money on to the product. And then it's going to take your process price and add on to it. So I've seen people finesse it in different ways. Um, I would say that that's a quick overview, and that if you're interested in looking at auto pricing, definitely reach out to us. And I usually like to take a call one on one with that. And what we do is I'll take a store that you've already built, copy it, and then we'll just play around and we'll try and get as close as we can to that original pricing. Um, and then that way we can kind of work with it from there.
Perfect, perfect. Um, oh, um, there's two good ones in there. We'll start with the first one here. Um, is there a way to offer an offline payment such as cash or Venmo? The answer is not
No,
really.
not really. Not at the
Yeah.
moment. Um,
You, you could, I mean,
just trying to, yeah, it would just be right now it's set up best for credit card. You could set up like a PO on the store.
yeah.
You could turn PO on. So from the settings page, I could allow PO and allow the customer to check out without putting in a credit card. Um, and then you would have to work with them to collect payment offline. Something like that, I think
Yeah.
would be is like the most common uh, workaround there.
Or I I know I've also if they're coming into like your store to pay for cash or something like that too, you could just wait for them to place the order when they come in. So then they place it at your store and then you set it up as a PO and then you collect the cash from there right then and there. I know I've told someone to do that and that worked. Um, but it's kind of case by case, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Color assignment by product. How are the updates on this going so that it doesn't change the color name every time you change the decoration color?
Yeah, that is intentionally set up that way. Um, so the purpose of that is if I had two products with the name charcoal, but one charcoal, maybe it's like a split color, um, and the charcoal is like maybe it's like the sleeves of the product, but the body is like white, let's just say. And you want the decoration to be the on white, but for the other charcoal products, it needs to be the on dark. Um, that's a fairly rare scenario, but it does happen. The whole purpose of the artwork assignment by product is to be able to um, kind of personalize that or to customize that. And then you would say for this charcoal, for the charcoal that has the white body, but the charcoal sleeve or white body charcoal sleeves, I want to put the on white logo on there. And then the reason why it adds the style number to the end of the color now is so on the work order, when you're looking at um, when the product color is showing up under the artwork page, it's letting you know that all the other charcoals are going to get the on dark logo, but the charcoal PC55LS, it's just calling attention that this specific item needs to have the on light logo or put onto it, or the variation put onto it. So that is there intentionally to help your production team sort it out appropriately, and so that to make sure that they put the right variation on the right product. Otherwise, the artwork assignment by product is where I would suggest, just because you could do more in bulk, um, and just make more changes in bulk.
Yeah. I feel like honestly, Craig, I feel like we could do a whole separate Q&A on just because this has all been like creating a store. We could do a
Mhm.
whole set. Maybe our next one should be a Q&A on just like the store closing processing.
Yeah. Um,
For the two that are in there, do you want to show the um duplicating your screen at least and doing it
oh,
that way?
sure. Yeah, that is one way that because I think I would say I use this more when I have a lot of products on the store, or a lot of colors, I should say. If I'm offering a lot of colors on the store and it's like an on light and an on dark variation, sometimes I have a hard time telling, like, is medium gray, like this medium gray is technically labeled under gray dark. Um, so this medium gray must be darker than what a like athletic heather would be. And so that's kind of hard to tell. So what I've done though is to help me do it a lot faster is I will right click on the tab up here, and I will duplicate this tab. And then the way that I work on generally, I have two screens, but just to show you, I would do something along these lines. Oops. And one, I would have the artwork assignment by product up. Yeah, see, it's probably formatting all wonky. This
Yeah.
way I can see the product colors. And then what I would do is, like, if this was set up wrong and I need to change white, then what I would do is I would go back to the other tab. Oops. Find white and make that change from here, so that I could make that change really easily, and then go back to the other tab. And then that way I could still see the product, the actual product images um, in one section, but make the change from the artwork assignments by color so that I can make it faster, um, is really the benefit there. Because otherwise you're going through and you're doing one at a time, and I wouldn't say that that's the best use of your time. Um, Whereas if I can just see, okay, athletic heather is a lighter gray, I could assign all three of these products at once by coming back here, finding the athletic heather, and just changing that.
Perfect. I would say we have time for like maybe one or two more questions.
I will repeat this one. Yeah, someone was asking how I duplicated. Just to slow down, I went up to the tab on my browser, right clicked, and then duplicate is an option. And now I have the exact same screen up. And then I would just use this one separate from this one. I would say like just as like a set of advice, one of these should always be like uh, the one that you make changes on, and then the other tab should just be the things that you view. I wouldn't make changes here on this tab and on this tab. That might throw things off. It might save over some changes that you've made in other areas. So one of these is just like a viewing tab, and then the other one is the one that I make changes on, just as like a helpful hint.
Perfect. Should we, unless you see a quick one in there, otherwise,
I think I would just say if anyone has any other like if you had a question that didn't get answered and you would really like to discuss that, you could just reach out to us and we can set up a time to talk, or exchange emails, um, and answer those questions on a more personal level. That way we can tailor our answer to fit your exact needs.
yeah. And I think this went over well. Maybe we'll start doing these more often. And I think the next one that we'll do a Q&A, but just specifically on the store closing
Yeah,
process, since we didn't really get a chance to get into that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so cool. Yeah. Well, like Craig said, if we didn't get to your question or um if you have like a specific question on something, always feel free to reach out to the team and we will answer that for you. So
Awesome.
cool, cool,
Cool.
cool.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you guys later.